see what happens. Okay. There we are. So let's get this the server. Okay. I don't know if this will be the right one. All right, so I got the stream running. I just gotta get the link. Get the link. Where's the link? Where's the link? Oh, I think this is the link. Let me see. Yep, that's the link. All right. Okay, so let me post it up. All right. All right. Where do fighting? Fighting. Okay. Oh, there we go. And Travis. Oh, wait, Travis. Okay. Feature. Click this. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay. For like right. All right.
Oh my god, Greg! I just saw your retweet about Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. So I tweeted it out. So yeah, you can.
Sweet, I got it.
Yep. All right. So let me make sure I'm on the right one here. All right. Please stand by. No one's listening. All right. Let me clear all this gunk off my thing.
It says it will start in a few minutes.
All right. Yep.
So you're not live yet.
Yep. Okay. Oh yeah. It was just so that I can get everything cleared out my thing. Yeah.
All right. I shared mine.
Ben, you there?
Oh yeah, I'm still here, man.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. In 3.
All right, I'm back. I accidentally clicked my headset and I left.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. So
I didn't peace out on you guys.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Okay. So, all right. We ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ready to rock.
Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fighting Roundtable. Welcome to the first live episode. This is really exciting. I am Dante Analysis, and joining me here once again is Monique Serra from Unwrapped Sports. Thank you for coming on again.
Yeah, no problem. I had a lot of fun the last time, and nice to meet new friends as well. Ben and Travis, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
All right, absolutely. All right, and speaking of which, yeah, welcome Ben Allen and Travis MMA. Please follow them on Twitter. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Glad to be here.
All right. So, the topic for today will be money in the fighting world. Its influence, its motivation, what it has access to, what it means for individual fighters, and how it will evolve in its influence in the fighting world. So, I just want to have it start in recent events. I only remember from Khabib saying his motivation for this was not money, because if he wanted to fight for money, he would fight Conor McGregor, but he always wanted to fight Tony Ferguson. So that kind of shows into mind, and also brings to my first question of there are fighters that fight for the thrill of it. Of course, no one's fighting for free. But how do you see what motivations do you see for people fighting for money, or just besides fighting for money?
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Oh yeah.
That's the question.
So we'll just go with the new people. Travis, you can go first.
Okay, I think there's a contrast between somebody like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who is there he's a pure martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
He's there to compete. There's somebody else like a Rumble Johnson, who doesn't even really like to fight, but he's good at it and makes money.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have born fighters like, let's say, a Matt Brown, who is going in there, and that's what he just wants to tear your head off and spit down your neck,
Right.
type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say people that are in it for the money would be more like of a Rumble Johnson,
Mm-hmm. Right.
purely in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, everyone wants to be the Conor McGregor, but he's a one-off, and I think people like him and Rousey and Lesnar are going to be brought up, but they are kind of like the outliers of the sport when it comes to making money.
Mm-hmm. Right. And to bring another example, Jeremy Stevens is another one. He's a journeyman of the sport, but he loves the absolute thrill of fighting in the octagon.
He likes hurting people. He enjoys it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think you kind of see that a little bit in boxing as well. There's individual fighters that are completely affluent in the boxing world. But you start to see some that actually like the sport of boxing, like Vasyl Lomachenko, although he's not really big on the realm of Canelo Alvarez or Triple G, but he is well known by the fans, and they do respect him for the training process he goes through to fight at the level he does. So there's a mix of people who like fight for the sport and those that fight for money. For people that fight for money, it's interesting because the thing about it is the money is a means to resources. So even though money is nice to have, it's also a means to an end. To whether it's for charity, for just splurging, or it's just to provide for their families. And you've seen this in a historical context in the 1910s, and a little bit during the Second World War. You see fighters coming up that are trying to become prize fighters in order to provide for their families, and this kind of culture revolves around through different countries, from the Italians to Spanish to Jews, and now to Russians, where we see a Lomachenko. How do you see the motivations today inspiring fighters now, where we see Dustin Poirier having a charity later on to as a motivation to fight for?
I mean, I'll get Ben to start first because he is one of the newer people, and then I'm gonna share my thoughts after him. How about that, Ben?
Okay.
Yeah, that's very kind of you, Minnie. Thank you very much. I think like when it comes to a lot of fighters, their sole focus nowadays. I think it's very much a generational thing because when I work on the UK circuit, I see a lot of guys who've basically seen Conor McGregor blow up, become this thing that's honestly, quite frankly, bigger than the sport when you talk to people who aren't really into it, and they become obsessed with money. But the problem is, it needs to be mixed. Their desire needs to be mixed with an actual desire to fight, because the people, like you said, like the Rumbles and stuff like that, who may only be in it for the desire and the life, not so much the lifestyle, but the money that comes with it, rather than actually the love of fighting, as say Matt Brown, they sort of do get found out. And obviously, Rumble, he had the power to sort of make it to that level. But once you realised, see what DC did to him twice. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, money does make the world go round, and these guys, they really do put themselves through hell for nowhere near as much money as they do get. But I do think there's definitely been some sort of influence in their minds from guys that are coming into the game now, say compared to guys that were coming in 10 years ago, something like that. But then boxing's a whole nother story, really. Boxing, anyone for the last generation or two of boxing has grown up watching guys come into the sport and walk away as millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit been a phenomenon for a while there. Whereas MMA, it's only really the last generation or so that are really that money influenced,
Right.
in my opinion.
Yeah, that is a kind of an example of the money fight era, where because of the yeah the glamour of pay-per-view buys, people want to act out in order to get the most buck for each fight they compete in.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
Oh no,
Ben,
go ahead, Monique.
Okay, so like basically, I liked how everybody brought up different points because I agree with every single part. Shout outs to Travis who talked about Wonder Boy Thompson. That's one of my favorite fighters, and it's kind of like for me. I think that money does influence the game, but it depends on which level you're at. Because there's some people that you can start off like Conor McGregor who like kind of just did this for the sake of fighting, and he obviously had such a passion for it, and then it transcended, then transitioned into somebody who was just really successful hungry, if that makes sense. So it's like the money, the business, the fighting, everything, you just wanted it all. And then like you said, there's people that have like a very low influence when it comes to money. Then you have people that use that for the greater good, just like Ben and Travis both pointed out. Dustin Poirier, great example of somebody that he does it for the love of fighting, but at the same time he uses his success for a really good platform.
Right.
And and then you have people like probably like Khabib or Matt Brown, like people said that literally just do it because they they want to be the most dominant fighter. They want to rip people's head. They love violence. So I think that it does influence people, but it depends on what kind of level. And there's definitely a spectrum, as we can see with all different MMA, even boxing.
And can I jump in here and say something real quick? I think that your geographical location, like where you're from, also play. Like almost anyone from Brazil, they're fighting for their survival because their family actually depends on it. And I'll just throw that in there.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, that is also a motivation to go for money in the fighting world. But it is, and as I mentioned earlier, it's also as a means of resources. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a bartering system in the future, but some people see it the gain of money as a symbol of a status. Yeah, a status. Like Floyd practically made in his second persona as a way to reinvent himself. From Pretty Boy, he revolved his persona around money, having this lavish lifestyle, splurging on a lot of things, opening a strip club. So money means different things to other people. I don't know if it's and that kind of radiates to the fighting world and people who want to come up with that, to actually to either copy that or try to find their own way to make to also grab money and also go along with that. I just wonder if there's if the grab of money, the quest for money is also being I guess used as a carrot to hung over the fighters by organizations. Will that be a negative thing, or will it inspire fighters to probably do that themselves, or actually play along with it, like kind of a buddy thing?
Travis, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I'm sorry. Can you break down the question a little more simply?
It's the kind of thing with Dana White and Conor McGregor. It was kind of like a meme thing, like Dana's children, like the people who really made the sport popular, made MMA popular. Yeah, the way they understood the money game and how to get it, and it has to do with being outlandish or just being larger than life. And he went into depth with this with Tony Robbins in an influencer conference about. He pointed out the specific things that made him interested in a fighter. They had a plan and they wanted to execute it with A, B, C, and D. So you see people trying to, I guess, copy this on some level, but they kind of missed the mark. will this become a trend with fighters, or do you see this like waning as we get into the Khabib era with Khabib and Tony Ferguson, all that stuff, or will it
Well,
just like ebb and flow?
well, I think the fact that most fighters are just struggling to make it day to day, that they don't have time for the extracurricular activities like this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, but if it's pertaining to Conor McGregor, we might want to let Ben answer that since he lives in Europe. Probably has a better grasp on it.
Yeah, more than happily. I think the most important thing is in order to make real money in MMA. And at the end of the day, people like Dana at the top don't really care about guys like us who they know realistically they're gonna if we put on a card, if they put on a card, we're going to watch it. They care about the people that don't really watch MMA often, but they that stick onto names. And Conor McGregor is one of a few names that I've noticed. Just basically, I'm based in the UK, and out of the people who occasionally watch fight sports and I can have conversations with, there's a handful, a very select handful of people that are interested of names that I can draw from. And Conor McGregor is one like that. So I think the most important thing for fighters, if they really are in the pursuit of money, is not necessarily be Conor McGregor because it comes off inauthentic and people don't really gravitate towards it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stand out by any means necessary. And I think the point Travis made about extracurricular activities is a fair point. But I think it's a little thing. It's your interactions with the media. It's your weigh-ins. Every single opportunity when you've got a camera in front of you, you need to stand out from the crowd one way or another. I mean, look at people don't even need to like you. Look at Colby. Just look at Colby.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, let me add to that. And what I think a fighter will benefit when they win a fight and they get the microphone in front of them, call somebody out. Don't try and be like Ben Rothwell, cringeworthy. But, do something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both. Again, this is a great job, Greg.
Thank you.
Both of these guys are awesome. Pretty much love piggybacking on what you guys said because I agree with everything. Just like Ben said just recently, kind of like you have to do something to stand out. And Travis pointed out something like, call outs after a fight. I don't think the trend is necessarily to copy like Conor McGregor, but I've seen before where Kevin Lee is a great example. He tried to, in my opinion, try to be like Conor McGregor. And so I think that era is kind of like dying down, but I do see an era of people really trying to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Sean O'Malley, love him. He's loved for the fact that he's eccentric and that's really who he is personally. And I think that he has like the right idea that he stands out, and obviously not just throughout the media, through social media and the way he interacts with his fans. So I think that I see that kind of trend where people will try whatever it takes to stand out, to make real money.
Right.
And Travis had a good point. A lot of people they're not getting like off by that much when it comes to MMA because that purse is really just kind of sad sometimes. And it makes me kind of sad, but this is how the fight game, this is how the money game works, in especially the UFC.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, this goes to the organization as well. What does it mean to gain as much power? Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear you, but when somebody else talk. Sometimes there's this speaker in the back. It's echoing.
Oh, okay. I think it's good now. Yeah. So to transition to that. I mean, to what end do that fighters and even MMA organizations go with money to either increase it or to use that as a means to other things like. Conor McGregor used money to eventually have his own promotion, with McGregor Promotions to do that Maymac fight, and also to have his own liquor company, Proper 12. So it's either for recreation or with respect with Stipe Miocic when he wanted to gain a contract the same way Alistair Overeem did, just because he felt as a champion he should be earning more. So. Do you see the change in the means to an end for money, or do you think it'll just be the same, just like a rat race, a money chase?
If I could jump on that, I think the thing that is unique when it comes to MMA is Dana White and the UFC are in a position where they're allowed to play judge, jury, and execution, when they're allowed to have sort of complete control, and cash rules everything around us. And
Could you repeat that last one? Can you hear a little bit?
yeah, I can just start. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You're good.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. I'll just say that. So the thing is, at the end of the day, cash rules everything, and Conor McGregor is an absolute unicorn when it comes to MMA because he's one of the only people that's become, like you said, he's got his own businesses through the money he's got. He's got a sense of self-sustainability, and one of the reasons the UFC is so successful and so dominant in the field, which is and boxing isn't, is because of the lack of regulations such as the Ali Act, which basically allows the UFC to basically monopolize blah blah blah, etc. And there's very little sustainability in MMA. But then again, that's partly because it's such a new sport. Conor may be the first one to become fully self-sustainable after this. He doesn't really need the UFC, but he certainly won't be the last. I mean, Stylebender's on a meteoric rise at the moment. Who knows where he can go? But I think that tide will turn in terms of more fighters will be able to start having their own things underneath them, like Floyd did in boxing, and now plenty of boxers are doing that. I think that tide will turn, but as far as it's going to be a fair few, it's going to be the exceptions rather than the rule because of the power that Dana and the UFC has.
Right.
Well, you have a lot of fighters that open up gyms, and they start off little companies too. Like, what's his name? Has the juicing company, Frank?
Oh, right.
Mir?
Why do I want to say Trig? But I know it's.
Oh wait, T.J. Dillashaw.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
either
think
way,
it was
there's ways for them to use their likeness.
Mhm.
And going back to what Ben was saying about judge, jury, executioner, yeah, they're what's called like the opposite of a monopoly. When there's only one buyer, there's only one seller for a UFC employee.
Right.
If you're under contract, you can't sell your goods to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And the UFC dictates, how much you're worth, and then basically you can't go and shop your product to anyone else when you're in a contract. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to pick because I again love these guys on this podcast right now. I think that we all have really good perspectives, and that's why I really do listen. And basically, kind of what both Ben and Travis were saying, kind of the same idea. In my opinion, like there's always going to be like a lot of fighters that are super skilled that come into the roster, but then there's always going to be like that handful of them, like Hunter or whatever, that's going to really make a difference.
Travis, is there something blowing in the background?
yeah, let me go back inside.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Basically, I wanted to say like there's only a handful of people that are going to be that, like, they have that it factor that can definitely, like, grow into their own businesses as well as being sustainable. And at the same time, like, if I was working in the UFC, and I would be looking out for people like that, because there's always going to be fighters that are just so talented that unfortunately, as in a business point of view, because just no offense, I don't really think this like personally, but they definitely do grade you and think that this is how much you're worth. Then you have someone like Conor, then you have like someone kind of like John Jones, but like not really, like in the opposite sense, that you can see them being worth more. And so I think that that's a really important thing. It's tough. I really feel for fighters because I want them to be genuine and to themselves. But at the same time, if you want to make the real money, you have to be like kind of like the Conor McGregors and the Kobes. It just makes total sense. But at the same time, it's really sad to think about. And this is just the reality of it. I think that anybody, Travis, Ben, you guys know this is the reality of it. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now, I think all of this is because the UFC and MMA is a pretty new sport and a pretty new sports company, and because of this, you'll see things where there's a lot of growing pains, but also the flexibility that we see, and the reason why we get so many great fights is because each fighter is their own business, and they might have to act differently than if there was like a unionized a structured unionized system where everyone can benefit, or that at least that's the theory. So with the UFC going from deal to deal to deal with Fox, and then finally to ESPN, trying to legitimize the sport long enough to create this infrastructure, but that's only on the MMA organizations. And how do you see the fighters organizing themselves in that same way, or do you think they'll ever using that same mindset when making money?
Maybe one
That's a
day.
good question.
Maybe one day, but for now, I just think that I could. I'm not an economist, but I watched a lot of I watched Luke Thomas do one of those studies with that guy who's like a student somewhere.
Aaron something.
Aaron Kona, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've watched a couple of them, and from what I managed to gather of it in a nutshell, the system that's currently in place, couldn't explain to you why because money confuses me,
Right.
is the system is essentially disincentivized for them to basically unionize. So
Right.
it would actually, in its current form, not be in their favor to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from the obvious facts that obviously, if you're like a Leslie Smith and you start mouthing off about how you want to unionize, the UFC is not going to be very fond of you and will cut you at the first available opportunity.
Right.
So that's just another just disincentivizing factor. I do think it will happen one day because I think it kind of has to.
Right.
These guys are getting I don't know when they're going to wake up and smell the coffee. They're getting realistically screwed when.
Yeah.
Just look at any other major sport that has eyes on it anywhere near as close as MMA, and look at how much they get paid week in, week out, rather than maybe 3 times a year if they're lucky and don't get injured.
It also because of how old the sport is.
It's like if the fighters wanted it, then they would have spoke up about it and made more of a push towards it. I don't think that the fighters aren't economists either, and I don't know, they're not too union savvy, because if they really wanted to, they could make a push for it. But whether they just think that they're being company men or they're just not really interested, they just want to put their gloves on and swing leather.
Right.
I don't know which one it is, but I think they would benefit from it if they would just realize that fact. And but then again, like, you don't want to be the Leslie Smith, so you're going to need someone. You need a bunch of people that are high up to go against it.
Yes. I agree with both of you guys because Travis, sorry, are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. There was somebody. I just think it's real sad, and I don't want to switch the topic too much here, but I think Ben was saying something, and it's really sad. The saddest thing for me about fighters is when they're begging for the post-fight.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a psychological factor to it because to get that fight bonus, they see a formula and they want to grab to it, but it also kind of it also puts in a culture of where you have to either like fight for your life or practically beg, which kind of like, and whether you agree with it or not, that's what you see in fighting world today. And I wonder if they'll continue or if there will be some sort of change that will, I guess, change some fighters' minds.
I think that I was about to say part of Travis's point about you might need a lot of people higher end, and where and you he said maybe some people don't care. I personally think that some people, number one, they don't want it enough, and number two, it's kind of like they don't want to be the Leslie Smith, so they know they have to get somebody that's super important to the UFC because, like Ben said, it just makes sense. It's gonna happen eventually, but it depends on who's gonna make the first move and how they're gonna do it. They have to be strategic, and unfortunately, this whole topic is kind of sad, but at the same time, it makes total sense because this is how the business is run at the end of the day. And you need I don't know, John Jones, Conor McGregor, Kobe Covington, people that I don't think personally they're really selfish and they wouldn't give a crap about this kind of stuff to really make it a difference. You don't need all those three, but you need maybe one that makes that's making money for the UFC to realize, oh, I don't want to lose this person, kind of thing.
Yes. Oh yeah, and that explains how it does give them kind of a complex, or some fighters a complex that they could push the envelopes, so to speak, and because they have the idea of, or whether they're aware of it or not, that they're a hot commodity. They're not something that they can be tossed away to a certain point. That they have some wiggle room in how they conduct their behavior while they're fighting in certain MMA organizations.
I think the way the UFC sort of masters that is, like Monique said, it needs to be a sort of one of the biggest stars, or at least one of them, to actually come out and say this to actually have any sort of effect. And I think the UFC realizes this, and their pay structure sort of reflects that. Because when you see like guys at the lower level getting 10, 10, 10, 10 to show, 10 to win, if you look at a lot of the disclosed payments after some of the bigger fights, however rough or estimated they may be, you don't often see that many show and win structures. It's mainly people at the higher end. These
Right.
more influential guys are getting just paid. They're getting taken care of more because UFC realizes, like you said, if they start speaking out a little bit more, they start rocking the boat. Whereas if they keep them comfortable and they're not going to speak out, then if Leslie Smith, no disrespect to her, at the bottom of the roster is going to start doing it, they don't need to worry too much.
Yeah, what you need is a bunch of people that are willing to fight for Bellator.
Yeah.
That's what
Exactly.
That's what
No,
you
he
need.
has a point. He has a good point.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, and now to switch gears a little bit, we can talk. We talked a little bit about investments and charity for a bit, and we can talk about charity for a bit. Yeah, the Good Fight Foundation is one of the main examples that the MMA organizations, or UFC, is trying to give back by incentivizing people to do good work, and also to show that. And it's also part of for good publicity to show others that we're not just like a blood sport. We want to be treated like an actual sport, and this is our ways to do it. We can show that these fighters have souls. We're not human chickens. It's not human cockfighting, and to show that we belong. So with this kind of mentality in mind, we see people like, I forgot what his name was. He went to the Congo to build wells for
Justin Wren.
Yes, Justin Wren.
Ooh,
Yeah,
nice.
you see fighters like him going out there and being this charitable person, and this kind of mentality of why they want to fight for money. It's because to fight for other than yourself, not only just for your family, but for others, to build for others, to just make the world a better place. Uh, how, how do you see this kind of do you see this kind of trend of being I guess being a more prominent thing in something such as fighting and combat sports, where people just to be a kind of a charity warrior? Yeah, someone someone who fights for charity.
I would hope that as the money in fighting gets bigger, that it'll attract more people, and you'll get more of these people that are willing to donate, like Justin Wren, like Dustin Poirier. But people have got to be able to make a living first before they can start playing philanthropist.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, it also reminds
But
me.
I hope that there's a whole bunch of organizations that are started. I think Dustin Poirier's is for playgrounds for his kids or something like that. Justin Wren is the Fight for the Forgotten for the Pygmies in Congo. And I want to see more of these pop up. As the money grows in MMA, I do believe that we'll see more of this type of work.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like a good showcase of philanthropy when the two top fighters in the lightweight division went out of their way to dedicate their fight to a cause. Including Brian Ortega when he I think he fought against Cub Swanson. That's when he talked about his charitable run to fight for people that he's representing people that don't have voice. Yeah, you see like top fighters like that going in there to fight the right fight. So that's kind of goes into my next question about investments. Yeah, these are can giving money to charity, and charity itself is used as a means to invest in in goodwill and good health, and also building a foundation where people can prosper and also uh, either live independently or just live better lives. Do you think you will see this trend where people are investing in their own communities, their own people, their own neighborhoods? Whereas you see this, I guess this current culture of like splurging, like this kind of the Floyd Money Mayweather Conor McGregor kind of thing. Yeah, because I see Francis Ngannou doing that with building a gym. I think it was a UFC PI in Africa, or it's just his own gym to attract other kids to do MMA.
Ben, what about Tyson Fury?
Tyson Fury. Oh yeah, he supposedly. I don't know if it was for the Wilder rematch or the one before. He supposedly gave it, I think, to a homeless charity in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He gave his purse, which is amazing. I think it's fantastic. I love to see guys like him doing that. I think we'd really. I think someone made the point earlier. I think it was Travis, basically talking like it's all well and good doing this stuff, but you've got to put food in your kids' mouths first.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, fighters don't really get paid enough. It's only really the higher echelon of guys like Poirier for his sort of pay bracket, which isn't particularly low, but it's obviously not up there with the Khabibs and the Connors and all that. He's one of the ones that he stands out because he's one of the more like philanthropic. I don't know if that's a word, but whatever.
Yeah.
He
It works
stands
for
out
me.
more.
Yeah.
As long as you knew what I meant. But there's also like, to give to his credit, I'm not the biggest Conor fan, but he's also done quite a few things that are quite charitable. I think he gave money to a sick kid for an operation, donating money to children's hospitals. You can call it PR, but you're still doing it. And Khabib, I think when he went on his sort of victory lap of the Middle East after he smashed McGregor, I think he donated loads and loads of money to charity. I think he went into Africa as well and started setting up projects there. So I think at the higher pay brackets of the sport, it's always going to exist. It may not always get the credit that it deserves, obviously, because that's not going to be the headline when you've got someone like McGregor doing what he does.
Right.
But yeah, I think when you're below those guys, I think it's really tough for people to really give back that much. I think people do give back, but not in the traditional sense. I think it's more of through coaching and stuff like that. Like
Right.
people taking underprivileged people off the street who may not have the opportunity to pay for classes normally, and then taking them under their wing, etc. So I think there's a very charitable aspect to a lot of the things people involved in the community do, but I don't think it always manifests in the traditional sense of starting foundations, etc.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with both of people. Like Travis made it obviously a good point that Ben kind of carried over, which is that the first thing you need to do is just make enough so that you can put food on the table and provide a shelter for your family, friends, whoever it is that you're caring for. And then at the end of the day, like once you get up to the higher rankings, people like Dustin Poirier is right like in the middle, just like Ben said. And like so, but his motivation is different from a lot of different fighters. We don't know if Ben said like, oh, McGregor's only doing this charitable stuff for PR. Khabib, I personally don't think that he's just doing this for PR, because I think that the motivation for certain people is that eventually they want to give back. And at the same time, you know, it sucks because like, you know, people they don't make enough in the MMA community, but like Ben said, there are different ways to give back,
Right.
like coaching, like fitness, whatever it is, camps for kids. And it sucks for now where they can't make the biggest difference, but I think that if they had, like, I don't think many of the fighters that are lower ranked or, you know, have a lower salary, I want them to more like kind of promote that they want to do something to give back one day, and I think that's kind of attractive for
Right.
someone like me as an MMA fan for almost 10 years. I like that kind of breath of fresh air. It's not just about making money. Of course it's about being successful at the end of the day,
Right.
but you know, we want to see that humanistic side of you where you do want to give back, because guess what, then when you get successful, what are you going to do? Just blow your money on a car, blow your money on a house? Like, you should, you know, I think part of what people should do due diligence wise, if you give back and you really mean it, then that's really going to be attractive for you in the media and social media and all your fans. I think that it's only a win-win situation, but I would love to see more people like really on saying that they really want to give back one day, and I think that that's probably going to help them in the future, even though they can't maybe do it now.
Right.
But just to hammer that point down about the average fighter, say if you're 10-10, if you win your fight, you get 20,000. Miles Jury was on Inside MMA some years back, saying so you got $20,000. Gym team is minus 2,000, management minus 4,000, taxes minus 6, medicals minus 500, coaching minus 1,000, miscellaneous another 1,000. So you're basically left with 5,500. And then, what are you going to do with that for a couple months to survive on a training camp?
Right.
It's sad, but it's kind of like, I guess you got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And now it brings up the question whether UFC fighters are underpaid or not. And I'm always of the thinking that they could probably get paid more, but I don't know what it takes to run a promotion.
Right.
That's what I've always been.
And just a final subtopic, just to wrap things up. Yeah, just the politics of everything. How money influences people to favor one over another. Not to beat a dead horse about McGregor, just to use other examples. A recent example, like Israel Adesanya. He's supposedly like the new one to really bring a lot of fans in to watch MMA and to watch the UFC. His style of showmanship, it's a mix of like glitz and glamour, but it's also about loving the sport first and foremost. And you see that a little bit in his championship fights, but you see it in his promo pieces. He wants to give back to his community, to also represent not only Nigeria but also New Zealand, because he found that his home. So you kind of see a little bit of like it's a shift, albeit a little bit of a small one, but you do see the shift of how Dana is prioritizing certain characters or certain characteristics of a fighter to ones that is more charitable and more affable to the public at large. And do you think it'll be a trend of playing politics for the good, or do you think maybe it's just a one-off thing?
I just really wanted to, because when Travis said, his breakdown of unfortunately what happens when someone gets paid, and he was asking, maybe begs the question, do UFC fighters get underpaid? I will say, I don't know about everybody, but I know, like, for Weili Zhang, like, she got, I didn't think she was going to get that much money. I thought she was going to get more as champion. And so, like, that, to me, was a big thing. And it's not just about girls, right? And, like, the whole inequality between male and female. It's about that she's a champion, and you're literally trying to make her a star right now. So that's the one thing I wanted to say before. But with this topic, I like Adesanya. He has weird ways of promoting himself. Like, have you guys seen the bathtub scene with the girl? Anyway,
no, I haven't.
Oh my god! So, Ben, Travis, you guys probably ran across it. It was literally on my timeline. But I think Adesanya is interesting. I think that I wish the politics would be more on the positive side. But at the end of the day, just like Travis says, I don't know how to run a promotion. Nobody here, I wouldn't think, that knows how to run a promotion, and it's all about the business side of it, which is the nastiest side of it, because it's not fair. At the end of the day, we have people fighting for belts that shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? In my opinion, because they're not. Then rankings are stupid. At the end of the day, so I personally don't think it's going to be more on the positive. I think Adesanya's smart. I think he's definitely going to play the game kind of like Conor. But he's a different type of champion. He's a different type of it factor for me, where it's not all about the money for him. It's about he is a great character, and that shows more than anything. And so that's all I have to say about both those topics.
Right. All right. So, fellas, anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll jump on. I think the trend is not, unfortunately, to say it isn't going to swing too much in the way of people starting to be a bit more charitable and use their platform for good, rather than do the usual showmanship things of standing out, or just in any way of standing out through showmanship. I think, like we said earlier, that we love people in this sport who do things like that. Like, remember when Thug Rose knocked out Joanna and basically used her biggest moment of her life. She put a mic in front of her and she talks about how we all need to be better and nicer to each other. Like, stuff like that makes us really gravitate towards her. But unfortunately, I'm skeptical about how much that really transcends in terms of playing into the mainstream because it doesn't really sell, unfortunately, or at least in the way that promoters are currently going forward with what they do. They're not packaging that well enough because as much as like Rose became a big fan favorite amongst the hardcores, during her title reign, her name really didn't go that much further. So I think it's a trend that probably won't
big up from
be shifting
Nickelodeon,
recently.
She also cut her hair off for cancer awareness, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she
I love
did,
her.
yeah.
And
You got
and I think she got a big ups from Nickelodeon. I think maybe like a nominee for a Nick Award, Kids Choice Award.
oh, did she? That's great, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'll have to fact check that one. But yeah, I mean, you could see a little bit of that. You can see MMA being popular for the kids. I mean, can you imagine 20 so years ago where you fathom the idea that you could actually promote MMA to children? It would be like a financial nightmare, but you can see that being a little bit more feasible.
Yeah, I mean, Travis, I don't know if you wanted to say something. I just kind of wanted to comment, but I wanted to have you to have a chance to talk about this topic.
About
But
Yeah, about like what Ben was saying as well. Like with like I don't know. Like Ben said that even when that time when that fighter, she talked about how we should be nice to each other. I personally think just from a marketing standpoint, because I did graduate from marketing, pretty much half my job is marketing to other people, and there's a way you can do that.
Okay,
right?
well,
yeah.
Here's a underlining 30,000 feet perspective at what we're talking about here, which is this is also the sport of face punching, and there's not a lot of good people in the sport.
Right.
It's a harsh reality for a lot of people to understand, but it's combat sports. It's filled with snakes and crooks, and it's all the way to the fighters, to the promoters. But that's why it's great to see somebody like Thug Rose do that, and we know the fighter the sport doesn't need more good people to, and they really stand out. Like for instance, Wonder Boy or Thug Rose or something like that. Yeah.
Love both of them.
He's the nicest guy in the world. I mean,
He is. Oh my gosh.
Or that Kyle character, that alpha ginger guy.
Oh right.
Yeah, I think it was in UFC Brasilia.
Yeah.
It's characters like that. I mean, it could really add to, I guess, like a healthy atmosphere in the MMA community and in the combat sports community.
I was thinking like everybody says, like I think we all really want to see more great, really nice, really kind-hearted people in this sport. I think that some people are like that, but they hide that part of themselves because they know it probably won't sell. I personally think it could sell, but it's the way you market the fighter and obviously the fighter being how you market yourself. So I think it's like there's two ways to it. It's kind of like, yeah, of course it might not sell because this person is not funny, dramatic, hilarious, like whatever it is, right? But then at the same time, you can sell that because even like people like us that are probably hardcore MMA fans, we remember those moments. We remember people that have stuck up and been nice and things like that. So I think it depends on how you market yourself because you have people like Wonder Boy, who is really nice, but we all know who he is. UFC obviously markets him as well. So we have to, I think it depends on like what kind of person that is, and like they have to realize that you can market yourself as a nice person, as a really kind-hearted person, then you can go do that and you'll be successful because there are people out there like that, but unfortunately there's not many, just like both of these gentlemen have said before.
Yeah, and there's a bit of change in politics with how to appeal to children. Like Sugar Sean O'Malley has this kind of stoner vibe of reaching the kids.
Kinda.
Yeah. I mean, Nike even went. No, not Nike. Is it Nike or Reebok? Yeah, Reebok even went to make Sugar Show shirts made with the 60s LSD kind of pattern thing going on, just for Sean O'Malley. So you can see where they're going, seeing where the money is, where I guess appealing to to potheads, to pot smokers, or fans of weed. So
Yeah,
yeah, you
like
could
Jack in the Box commercials.
Jack and Box
Right.
commercials. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they target. They know their target audience. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know it's like yeah, it's just yeah. I think it's just like an example of I guess UFC and this can go to other MMA organizations trying to see what can stick. I mean, I remember one commercial. I think it was Geico where they put Cody Garbrandt in this random commercial where they tried to like shoehorn some MMA related joke to it just to make the punchline work. So yes, there's some hit or misses, but like just in the quest of money, they yeah. I think they're more flexible with yeah, they're more flexible with politics where they don't really lean on one side of the spectrum or another of the political spectrum. And they're a little bit more flexible with that, which is why albeit late, they were trying to appeal to the LGBT community with trying to promote Amanda Nunes on National Pride Month. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, National Pride Month. So yeah, you can see this kind broadening their audience in order to make MMA as profitable as possible. So do you think it's do you think it's an ebb and flow thing where people might actually broaden out more than that, or do you think it's probably heading probably heading out to another direction, or do you think they'll grab onto something else?
I personally think it's a bit of ebb and flow thing. Like I think
A
I
what
can't remember
thing?
who said it earlier. Ebb and flow.
Okay.
So I can't remember who said it earlier, but someone mentioned the idea of maybe the trash talk era that sort of McGregor, quote unquote, brought in being over. And I do think that's the case because if you see someone now outlandishly like screaming in someone's face,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it will get a bit of reaction, but I don't think that's what really sells. The people that you sort of mentioned before there, like Sean O'Malley, very much on trend right now.
Yes.
Fortnite's well, I'm not a gamer, but I guess that's at least one point was a massive thing, and he
It
managed to
still
sort
is.
of. It still
Apparently, it
is.
still is. I don't know. I'm not a gamer
It
either.
is.
Yeah, not my area of expertise, but I think he's streaming. I know DJ did it too, or at least or does it, and he maybe didn't get as much notoriety off the
Right.
back of it, but
Yeah.
he doesn't really stand out as much as O'Malley, at least not in this Western market, whatever. I think he's doing pretty well out over in Asia with one. But that's another story.
Mm.
But yeah, I think you just need to basically it ebbs and flows. I think like trash talk isn't popular now, and Fortnite is. Maybe in 2 years' time, people will be bored of Fortnite and they want to see trash talk again. Fight
Mm.
fans are very fickle at the end of the day, especially
Oh
the casual
yeah.
ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also why he's trying to reach or at least flattered trying to get Logan Paul or one of the Pauls into fighting in fighting in MMA, which is why they had this like weird like flash pan point in in MMA history where he was trying to get fighters to I guess flirt talking to him or try to fight him. It was kind of weird because of how social media is becoming more prominent, and you see YouTube celebrities duking it out. That's really it's weird, but it's also funny.
It's I just wanted to. Yeah, I was gonna laugh at that. Travis, if you had something to say about this whole topic.
Yeah, I think you guys pretty much got it.
Yeah.
With the whole Logan Paul thing, I will say that the way that they promoted that boxing card, which is that they had a bunch of interesting fights on there and not just the top. I think
Right,
that's a
right.
model for boxing that they should do more often, but
Mhm.
we never see it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that with both of you saying, like Ben saying, like, oh no, the Logan Paul situation. Of course, I snickered at that. The only reason is because they're obviously doing it for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, Logan, Jake Paul, definitely not a fan of what they're doing. It's not MMA related whatsoever. But I think Sugar Sean O'Malley, obviously, I brought that up in the beginning. He's really on trend because of just the things that he promotes and just the person that he is really does appeal to young fans and then potential casual fans, potential amateur MMA fans. And at the same time, it's kind of my point in the beginning where it's kind of like you don't have to be just like Conor McGregor. You can be yourself, but if you have that it factor, if you definitely do appeal to the younger audience, I guess you could say, because like Trash Talk was maybe a few years ago, it was really hot. Then I think that you can be successful. I think you just have to be smart. At the end of the day, it's really strategic. The whole money game, fame game, media game, everything like that.
But also the way you fight too is gonna help a lot, because Sean O'Malley just goes in there and does
cartwheels and like flips,
but not in the sense of that guy who gassed himself out in the first round.
Oh, you mean is it Mike Pereira? I don't. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, Michelle Pereira.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that you're right. Definitely, like he's just very eccentric, like I said in the beginning, and then you obviously like that. Obviously attracts not just people like us, but obviously amateur fans that are like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then you have Michael Pereira that just is just there for having fun.
You know what? I'm on that guy's side. I want that guy to succeed. I want to see more of that.
Yeah. Ever since his
why not
his exit from ever since his exit because of this USADA kerfuffle. Yeah, it's good to see him like fighting around again.
I think I like the reason why I like Sugar Sean O'Malley is not because just the fact that he's just naturally just a cool person. You want to be his friend. You're just like, oh, we're gonna hang out with him. We're gonna smoke some weed if you do that, and we're gonna and then look at his highlights and the way he fought. Like personally, I wasn't a fan of him when he fought Dana White's Contender Series. I thought he was obviously more exciting than that. And then when he got into the UFC and he broke both his legs fighting that one fight, and then USADA and the injuries really held him back. But I think the reason why I like him is just because like he's just cool. Like that's just who he is. If that makes sense. Not even just talking about how he fights, just the whole persona of him is just like I want to root for this guy, just like Travis said.
Right.
If you had a choice to go to a baseball game with TJ Dillashaw or Sean O'Malley,
oh my God,
who would you choose?
Oh my God, not no offense to Dillashaw. He's an arrogant asshole. I'm not going to even talk about that right now. Dillashaw can come at me. I'm just saying that. If you want to cut down to 125, it's just like, okay, and you look like that. But Travis definitely has a point, for sure.
Okay. And I guess one more question about politics, just to wrap this one up. I see that the reason why they want to go to other countries or to open up markets in other countries because they see the potential in it. Yeah, you also bring in like a different people, different cultures, and how it influences the sport, combat sports, as they see a different kind of vibe in MMA, a different kind of fighting, like Senegal wrestling when Cain Velasquez went down to Senegal to see this kind of fighting. Yeah, and you can see how they are even thinking of opening up PI in Africa as a way of investment, and also trying to get fights in Africa to headline Israel Adesanya and other Nigerian fighters. Yeah, on the I guess the sinister side of it, it's kind of like with the way the mafia kind of like goes through gambling lines to, I guess, influence the fight to go one way or another. You kind of see this trend with hometown advantage, where fighters that headline cards or just fighters that are on like main cards that are popular with the folks, you have this meme of home field advantage where they'll give the decision to them because they want people to come back again to see their hometown heroes triumph, and also gives some people hope as prospects to fight along with them to carry the torch. See that in Canada, Brazil, and United Kingdom are kind of are notorious for that, and I think you might see that in Russia, but not as much. And not so much in Abu Dhabi. You don't see much of that. They're kind of neutral about that thing. So my final question is, as new places open up, do you see this kind of home field advantage meme carrying on, or do you think that there will be a line drawn by either the fighters or the few people up top that, as a culture, as an MMA culture, we want to show that no, you don't get the home field, you don't get home field advantage no matter where you are. As a sport, we want to be straightforward down the middle.
Okay, if I may,
yes,
the reason why hometown cooking happens is because the judges are influenced by the crowd.
Mm.
I've seen it happen at a Bellator event, and it's just kind of a crazy thing that happens because the crowds are cheering every time their hometown fighter, lands a strike or gets a dominant position, and it without a doubt that is what is influencing the judges. A lot of people think that there's conspiracies involved or whatever. It's just they're not. The judges are human, and the energy. If anyone's never been to a UFC event or just an MMA event in general,
right?
There's a lot of energy in the air. There's a lot of stuff going on. So that's, I mean, you have other cases where the judges are associated with fighters' camps,
right,
or gyms or stuff like that, and but it's mostly due to them being in the arena. Now, the argument against that is to have off-site judges, but that's a whole nother.
That's different, for sure.
That's a whole other conversation.
For sure, I want to have Ben's input because I like the whole people always said ladies first. And I'm like, you know what? Let's have the new people, start off. And I like you guys' opinion. So Ben, do you have anything to add to this topic?
Yeah, definitely. I think I hate to always try and separate MMA from boxing, but I think you will kind of have to.
I think it's a combat sports thing.
Yeah, of course. But I think in this example, so I think, like was said earlier by Travis, home field advantage is a real thing in terms of the crowds swaying the judges. But I do think there's a separate phenomenon that happens more in boxing. That's basically there's a very incestuous relationship between the promoter and the commission, in a sense that they both rely on each other to make money. The promoter relies on the commission to put the fights on. The commission relies on the promoter to put the biggest fight on possible, so they can get more money into the states, which trickles down to them because they're a state commission in the US, etc., blah blah blah. And so often when you see like a big boxing fight, you'd see like a big promoter, like say De La Hoya and Golden Boy, basically taking out the commission, the judges, like several people affiliated, maybe not so close as actually the judges, but affiliated, out to dinner the night before. That's a big phenomenon that's gone on in boxing for a long time.
Yeah.
The UFC don't really have that because it's just basically one promoter rather than sort of two coming together to make the fight.
Right.
So you don't really have that sort of phenomenon. Maybe you can say, like, look, it might be in Dana's best interest for John Jones to get the nod this time rather than someone else. So maybe there is a little bit of that. But I don't think there's anywhere near as much of a problem as there is in boxing. I think, as for purely home field advantage, I do think, I think, it's, like you said, it's a whole separate argument as to whether you want to start moving judges remotely or increase the amount of judges, blah blah blah, or give them a feed without audience sound or anything like that.
Right.
But I think as long as it's spectator sports where an element of business is related to having hometown guys and filling up arenas there, you're always going to really have that problem. So until the rules start changing or the structure in which we start judging it changes, that's always going to be a thing.
I see.
Yeah. I think I think there's different perspectives when it comes to this topic because, like Ben said, boxing's a little bit different. However, the last time I saw something like this happen in UFC was the Dan Hooker fight. Because I was like, wait a second, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
you guys know what I'm talking about, okay?
Against Quinta.
Paul Felder, I believe.
Oh, right, Paul Felder.
That was a couple of months ago, and when I saw that, I was like, okay, see, now I'm not a fan really of both of them in that perspective, but I even thought that, this was a little bit, towards home field advantage, and there's so many articles and so many media pieces after that talking about how it was, unfair that Paul Felder should have won. He should have won based on what real judging is.
Yeah.
And I think that, like Travis said, that's exactly what I'm trying to go at, is that Travis said that this is a humanistic quality. That judge is in the ring, and it might just be that they might get swayed a little bit because of the energy that comes from that. And Ben, UK crowds are huge. Australia and New Zealand crowds are big. They definitely create that energy that I've only seen when I went to London personally. But it's definitely a thing. And then at the same time, is it necessary? Like, I feel like in terms of selling fights to different parts of the world, I think it is necessary to have someone that, I guess represent that culture, country, someone who's near that, like Khabib versus, in Abu Dhabi, that was a big thing. for them. Do you know how many people are wearing those? I don't even know what it's called, but like, you know, those head wigs and stuff like that. It's because that it does sell, and people will come, you know, for Khabib, and they will come for Dan Hooker. They will come for Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya. You know, the list goes on and on. So I think it is necessary, but I don't think it should affect things like judging. You know, but it will, because we're all humans and we all kind of get influenced, and like when a lot of things are distracting you, you know, because he's watching the fight, he's like listening to whoever's on the crowd and trying to make that decision. I think that does definitely affect it, and it's unfortunate sometimes, because that Dan Hooker fight was really disappointing to me as a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I do see what you mean. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can influence fighters, not including the judges or the audience. Yeah, things like betting lines. Also, they're also humanistic, because they also get it from information about the fighter. Because Ronda Rousey versus Ronda Rousey versus Amanda Nunes. Yeah, they put her I think as an underdog, like a really big underdog, because they consider her cannon fodder. And as a personal one, Roxanne Modafferi, she's a favorite of mine. I
love her too.
Yeah, I think they put her as a 150 underdog against Macy Barber. And just knowing about her jiu-jitsu,
it was more than that.
A little more?
I think it's more than that. Okay. It's just so sad that it was more than that.
Yeah, and you can see how because Macy Barber is brought up to be like a prospect. That's where you will follow. Yeah, if you follow the money, quote unquote, you can see how the betting lines will be influenced that way, and that's why you saw Roxanne Modafferi have this like huge betting odds.
She was a 5-1 underdog.
Yeah, 5-1 underdog. So yeah, and and that's where you kind of see where it's coming from. It's kind of like it's a little bit shady, and there's. And that's where you can see how it can be how money influences not only fighters but the audience, and also betting lines, and also people at large. So maybe betting will always be betting, but maybe you'll seeing that it's human, you'll see like a change in that, and it might be towards the fighter's ability as opposed to other factors like that, or maybe not.
It's funny because you brought up Roxanne Modafferi, and like just like talking about this whole discussion about, you know, of different topics, whether it's about money, whether it's about, you know, can a nice guy really be promoted so that he could, you know, like win all the UFC fans, or is it all about Conor McGregor, John Jones, all the people, Kobe Covington, the people that, you know, pretty much make it their priority to get noticed. You know, is it about, like, Roxanne Modafferi, is she really that much of an underdog? Because technically, on the ground, she's a monster. You guys saw that. Absolutely. Against Macy Barber. But Macy Barber, like we just said, she's trying to, you know, pretty much trying to be the next female kind of John Jones, female Conor McGregor, really arrogant, you know, says I'm going to be the next champion at, 21 years old right now? So that's the whole point. I'm trying to, like, tie everything back together, because I think we were all talking about people like that, like, you know, there's a nice person, there's a person that wants to be like Conor McGregor, there's a person that does things for charity,
right?
You know, and all that kind of ties in together, and it's unfortunate, but we as hardcore MMA fans, like, we know who we like and we know how they are, and we're going to root for them no matter what, right?
Right. I do see what you mean. So I think that's everything that I got about that. So, and you guys, anything to add before we wrap up?
I was muted.
Oh, no problem. So, guys, anything to add before we wrap up?
No, not really. No, it's been good fun though. I'm happy to do another one of these whenever.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Travis?
I would just like to add that I've seen that Israel Adesanya in the bathtub video multiple times.
Oh my god!
And I have it bookmarked on my page.
Wait, I gotta see what this is.
Travis, don't start with me right now. But I just want to say that you guys have been a lot of fun. It's been a great blast just talking about MMA.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was just kidding. I'm with Overtime Heroics and Ashwan MMA on Twitter. I have an article that just was out this last week called "The Case for Jose Aldo." If you go to the website and hit the MMA drop-down button, you can see an article I wrote about UFC.
Oh,
250.
I'm reading that. I'm
I'll
definitely
check
gonna
that out.
comment on that because
Okay.
it's a topic for another.
Okay. Ben, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Ben Allen Fights, ALLEN for Allen. I run a page called Fight HQ, doing all sorts of combat sports and that. So you can follow it. Recent work. I just did a little video talking about what if UFC 249 actually somehow happened, what the card could actually look like. So if you want, check that out. But yeah, it's been great speaking to you guys. You're all cool as hell, and it's been a nice little break from quarantine. Put it that way.
Definitely. Thank you guys for coming along. I knew you were all really busy, so I'm glad we could coordinate each other and get this thing done. So thank you very much.
Thank
Cool.
you
Right
guys.
on, guys.
All right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the Fighting Roundtable podcast. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Bye.
Hey.
All right.